Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for a session driving data access and governance and security. My name is Zafer Bilaloglu. I'm a solution architect at Databricks, and I'm also the practice lead for our cybersecurity SMEs at Databricks. And I'm also joined here by Navindra Yadav, who's the founder and CEO of Theom. Navindra, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, we actually build a data governance and security product, and yeah, I'm the founder of that company, Theom. Go for it.
Awesome. So just a quick introduction into some of the core capabilities that's available within Databricks before we dive into the capabilities that Theom is delivering on top of the Databricks Lakehouse. So Databricks Unity Catalog, for those not familiar with it, it provides unified governance for data and AI. And the four key benefits that it provides is unified visibility into your organization's data and AI assets, a simple permission model for data and AI-powered monitoring and observability, and open data sharing capability for the Databricks platform. And the benefits of these with unified visibility into data AI, it accelerates your organization's ability to innovate on the Databricks platform, allows you to quickly discover data sets on top of that have been built into the Lakehouse, as well as AI models, which allows you to deliver value more quickly. The single permission model reduces complexity for your organization. You can have a single place to govern all of your data and AI assets. And then AI-powered monitoring of observability minimizes your compliance risks for your organization. And then the open data sharing capability helps unlock collaboration and monetize the value of that data. And then diving in deeper into these benefits, with Unity Catalog, you can discover and classify any structured data your organization has, but you can also do that with unstructured data, things like images, videos, PDF files, along with other assets like ML models, notebooks, and dashboards. And then this unifies data and AI catalogs under one roof and one product. Additionally, you can also register and govern query from data sources and databases like Snowflake, BigQuery, MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQL Server, Synapse, you name it. We can govern those data sets as well as federate query to those systems without the need to copy data into the Lakehouse. So you have a single point of access and a single layer of governance for your entire data estate. And this helps you build out a data mesh architecture. And with this, you can drive better understanding of your data estate. And then with additional context around these assets, with insights around data popularity, frequently used queries and notebooks. It also highlights highly used queries and joins, making data enrichment much easier. And automated data lineage helps you understand where data is coming from and how it's transformed and how it's used. And then Databricks SQL, this is the intelligent data warehouse on the data intelligence platform. Combined with Unity Catalog, it can be used to build novel new cybersecurity products like the one Theom has built to deliver value on top of the Databricks data intelligence platform. So next, I'll hand it over to Navindra to go over the really powerful capability that they've built on top of the Databricks intelligence platform with Theom.
Thank you, Zafer. Thank you. So what does Theom do? It builds, like Zafer was mentioning, on top of Databricks, covers a large set of data stores, a whole bunch of data stores. It does runtime observability around the data plane, looking at what's happening in the data plane. From there, starts driving these signals. The first one is, let's say one of the problems that we hear a lot from our customers is, what should my governance policy be? It's not how you configuring and pushing your governance policy. You've got Unity Catalog, for example. You can push it across multiple different platforms. Theom will discover what your policy should be, what your permission list should be, and so on and so forth. It'll do all of this automatically by observing your runtime environment, who's accessing what are they doing with the data, why are they doing what they're doing, and so on and so forth. So the first step is just observe the environment without asking the user to enter any information. It discovers what's happening and then starts driving what your ideal policy should look like, and I'll talk more about that. That's one part. The other part about Theom, because it's actually discovered what your ideal should be, it creates these models for each user and every role, how they interact with the data, what are they doing with the data, and so on and so forth. So when things go off the rails, Theom can detect that and start telling you, okay, it's either a performance issue, or maybe it's a security issue. Most often than not, we catch a lot of impersonation attacks, like someone got phished inside the organization, for example, or there's an insider who's going and looking at things or doing things that they should not be doing. Theom's AI would automatically detect that and surface it. Because we'll know what data and what operations they're doing with the data, Theom can actually start ranking all of these things for you and say, that's the one that you need to focus on as compared to all the other things that you have in this whole environment things. So again, just focusing, the first one is classic data access governance, where Theom discovers the principle of least privilege for the customer, just observing their environment and says, okay, this is what your policy should be, and then it'll enforce it using Unity Catalog or whatever your enforcement mechanisms are, push the policies down. That's part one. Part two is discovering attacks in your environment and telling you, okay, this is how far attackers have reached into the environment, and without the user doing any work on their side. That's a reactive side of Theom, or security side of Theom. So again, you may have lots of different data stores. Data may be flowing through multiple of these systems. Theom will track lineage across these wide, disparate systems and say, this is how data is flowing. That data, so when you start talking about governance and so on and so forth, Theom can drive, okay, that's the data started off from such and such system. The subset of that data has come here, especially if data is coming from outside the organization or going out of the organization, going between different domains inside a data mesh. Theom can map all of that, build your data topology, and then go from there. That's one around data movement. The other part of the equation that Theom looks at is who's accessing what. And what we're really crunching there is access logs, query histories, things like that of each one of these data systems. Theom analyzes that, and it also runs inside your environment. For example, if you're a Databricks customer, Theom itself runs on Databricks and watches all your other systems running on it. So kind of it's powered by Databricks. That's one way to think of it. That's where all of this processing is running. So all your data, all your metadata stays with you as a customer. Again, this is an example of Theom connecting into multiple different systems. The engines reside on each one of those platforms. So for example, in this diagram, you see Databricks. There are Theom engines running inside Databricks, so watching everything that's happening inside the Databricks platform thing. Azure, if you've got an Azure stack in your environment and a whole bunch of data stores inside Azure, Theom will deploy its engines inside Azure in your environment, again, keeping everything local to that environment. Same thing goes with AWS, same thing goes with GCP, same thing goes even with on-prem. If the customer has on-prem data stores, which a lot of our large enterprise customers do have, they have a lot of data on-prem. So it gives this global view across all your data assets thing, and then brings a federated view across all of them. So in terms of outcomes, you could see classical policy discovery for your data access governance, single pane of glass, and also telling you about whether you've got a breach, how's that breach actually shaping up, and so on and so forth in your environment. If you've got multiple different Databricks environments and so on and so forth, again, Theom can deploy in each one of these environments. A key thing about Theom is the metadata, and this is something very unique about this architecture, stays with the customer. It stays in your Databricks environment, or whichever environment you have actually deployed Theom in. All data, including the metadata that Theom generates for your environment, stays with the customer. So there's no metadata getting shipped back towards Theom. So This is something like highly regulated industries care a lot about, because we build this large knowledge graph about who's doing what and why they're doing what they're doing, and so on and so forth. All of that stays with the customer, including it's kept local to each account that we are monitoring. In terms of use cases, there are many use cases things. I'll focus on the couple which have a yellowish tinge, or 3 of them which have a yellowish tinge in this talk, but there are many others. Happy to do this offline things, or if you've got questions, please feel free to ask them after I finish this thing. So first one is principle of least privilege. I'll also go into masking and humans masquerading as service accounts, something that we see often. Let's start with humans masquerading as service accounts. This was something in the news with another company last week, but we see this almost every customer that we deploy in, where someone from, it may be one of the 2 cases, like what this means is there's a service account or there's a machine account that has the right privileges to access data. And there's someone inside that company, a human being, who's using the identity and the privileges of the service account to access data. Theom detects this, and this often happens because one of 2 reasons. The first one being like it's easier to use a service account rather than file a ticket to get access to the data. It's too much hassle, and so on and so forth things. So people taking the shortcut of accessing data, it's either that, or there's truly someone inside the organization that has been phished, or someone, an insider trying to actually access data for illegit purposes. So what Theom does, as this screen is obviously, screenshot is redacted. It was from a live environment. So what it's actually showing is, if you just look at the second row, there's a certain connector which has about 400K logins that went in, or sessions that went in and accessed data over the last 24 hours. Theom is flagging 5 of them as being not that application. So Theom is essentially telling the user, in this particular case, you've got someone masquerading as that application or impersonating that application. All of this is automatically detected by Theom, and the right systems get notified thing. In this, if I look at one of these sessions, Theom is tracking. It's the column number 2 username is the service username that's accessing the data. There's a connector for Databricks. The particular company has gone and built, and it's accessing data. There's a certain data set that it's being accessed, which is some VIP customers inside that environment. So Theom tracks all of that and tracks the username and so on and so forth. It's also looking at the queries being run in that session. It's tracking the queries. OK, these are the set of queries, and eventually sees what gets downloaded and so on and so forth things. So it tells the customer, this is what your blast radius looks like from this particular session, and this is what that particular, or whoever was there did this. What our customers often ask us is, can you narrow down, I've got 25,000 employees, or maybe 50,000 employees. Can you narrow down who inside my company may have done this, or where does this vector come in? And that's the first column, where Theom triangulates things down and says, OK, maybe it's one of these 3 individuals inside the company from where the behavior has originated. Whether it's legit or illegit would be a second thing. And that really is in the bottom part. This is more from the back end that we scrape this. And there, Theom actually looks at, tells the customer whether this is a training issue or whether they really need to jump on this right away. Training issue would be something like people are using shortcuts to access the data. And what Theom essentially studies the environment is, who does what inside this company? Are there multiple people doing this thing from the same group who are trying to access? That gives an indication. And how frequently does this happen? How prevalent this is? Because it's got this, it's looking through all the log data over time, and then tells the customer this is more of a training issue. You don't really need to hit the big red button, break glass, that kind of thing. This is more of people, they figured a simpler way to get to their data, a shortcut. Sorry, go ahead. Yes, catalog works all the way down to the data store, to table and things. So it'll give the whole lineage as well as tell you what's getting downloaded in your environment. So yeah, the last one is the table or the view from where things are getting pulled out. And these are the queries that have run and so on and so forth thing, as well as it'll tell potentially these are the 3 individuals inside your company. It tries to narrow it down to as close as possible who may be running things in this environment. So it'll tell, okay, this probably is a training issue in your company. It'll try to differentiate the two. Or if it doesn't find those patterns, like multiple people doing the same sort of behavior and so on and so forth, it'll now turn around and tell the company, you potentially have an insider who's pulling data out of your environment, and this is a break glass situation. You really need to intervene. Also values the data. So there's another part of Theom which actually puts financial value on the data or business value on the data. So companies can automatically prioritize or set thresholds. When the data has a value, financial value or business value of more than X, that's when you trigger certain actions of preventing these accesses and stop things. So that's the remediation side or the intervention side of Theom. So depending upon what the company has given, and then we'll work with interfaces like Unity Catalog to start pushing those rules down. And that's really where all of these partnerships come in.
And one of the other really powerful capabilities is because you have this metadata around the most valuable data sets, you can do automated remediation where you can kill these queries and in flight and disable users who may be exfiltrating data like an insider threat that's leaving the company and wants to take a bunch of data with them. Once they start running these abnormal queries to dump your production databases, Theom can stop those queries in flight.
Thank you. And that's absolutely, and that's where the power comes in, like integrating with Unity Catalog, because Unity Catalog, very simple interface to drive all these remediations. Theom is observing from the side, calculating all of these things, and then we interface with the right remediation interface for the customer. Yeah, go for it. Great question, and this is like a similar problem or challenge shows up. Let's say you've got Sigma computing connected. So any BI interface or any other application, so there Theom actually looks at the access logs from those interfaces and then sees what's those users coming on this session. So multiple users have been multiplexed into a particular session, coming into this. And essentially that username, if you look at that, that's a connector. That's why it says Databricks PII, something, there's a connector in the middle. But it's traversing through the logs of the prior system to look at, OK, what's behind that? And it keeps doing this daisy chain hopping behind the scenes to get things.
Love the questions. We do have a microphone. And if you do ask before you get the microphone, Navindra, if you could just repeat the question, that'd be great.
Perfect. Yes, so the question is the identity that's presented or the user could be as individual identity or a service account. Yes, the answer is yes. So we go with that.
Yeah, so just raise your hands and I'll run this microphone to you.
Thank you. So another example of Theom, so the previous one was more reactive. So detecting, OK, there's a threat in the environment and stopping that. This is more on the proactive side of things. If you do a good job around hygiene, or what we've actually observed with our customer base, there are lesser of the issues that show up downstream in the pipeline. And in this particular case, certain data was supposed to be redacted or masked, but wasn't redacted or masked from certain roles. So the Uber policy that you tell Theom is, this type of data should be only unmasked to certain roles or certain purposes of use should only, so it becomes even more powerful if you define things in purpose of use. So for only these purposes should this data be unmasked or unredacted. Now Theom's job is now find, OK, where is that kind of data? Where is that sensitive data that's part of classification, part of all of that discovery of data and so on and so forth. It'll do all of that good stuff. Then next thing is it'll analyze the policy of masking or redaction, whatever you have, and then look at, okay, which roles have what type of masking associated with it. And in case it finds violations from the desired policy, it brings that up to the customer's attention. Okay, you've got such and such field, not really masked from certain users. So that's all good. That's part one. Part two of Theom will also tell you whether that is actively being exploited in your environment. So the second screenshot there where it actually says accessed and modified, and it talks about the particular role and the identity behind that role is actually actively accessing this data. So now it's no longer just a hygiene issue. You probably want to step it up and prioritize fixing or whatever remediation you want to drive. The furthest column talks about modification of the data. So now the data is getting modified. Theom will also tell you, okay, it's getting accessed, it's getting modified, and so on and so forth. So now your data integrity potentially is coming into question, and then it'll trace, thanks to the lineage that we pick up from Unity Catalog, as well as what Theom also builds lineage across systems, can tell you what the blast radius would be downstream. So if the data got modified here, what are you looking at, especially in this world where everyone is trying to build some AI system on data and so on and so forth. You can actually see where is the collateral reaching out to. Yes, sir.
Is this so do we have to have the policy defined, or do you have any AI engine that automatically recommends those rules, right? Like looking at email address or revenue or something, will Theom recommend that, hey, this needs to be masked?
Yes. Theom does recommend policies, things that this is sensitive in your environment, and we don't see masking. We'll also tell inconsistencies. In that other space, we see this kind of data masked, but here we don't see similar policies. So maybe you've got inconsistencies between your clones, or the same data being masked in a certain environment and not being masked in another environment. We also track things like what's production, what's UAT, what's dev, and so on and so forth. So in dev, the same fields don't need masking, and so on and so forth, because probably the data is very synthetic in nature things. So that's what we've gone and done. So in a particular environment or a certain set of data stores tagged with a certain tag, and if we see lineage, that's another thing that we trace, okay, lineage of production data, if it actually lands up in another area, which, let's say you've got a Uber policy around prod data and UAT, or separation of prod and dev, we can see cross joins happening across environments. So the simple short answer is yes, we can recommend policies.
I have two, excuse me, can you? I have two-part question here. One is, does Theom require to be set up as a catalog owner across multi-workspace, multi-catalog environments? And the other is, to the gentleman's question, while parsing the entire application data to identify the sensitive data tagging, does Theom have a capability to go at the medallion architecture level in my raw or injection zone, and then my conform zone, and in the published zone? Can we set up tags in different medallion architecture zones? So these are the two questions.
Yeah. So for the first thing, does Theom need to be set up as a catalog owner? No, Theom doesn't need to be a catalog owner. All it's just looking at is access logs things. And the other one is reading, classifying the data thing. In terms of tags in the medallion architecture, yes, Theom will read your medallion style tags, as well as your policies can be based on that. So the policies could be in production. My analytics data needs a certain level of treatment, and people should not be directly accessing that. I should see humans accessing my gold level or gold or published data more often as compared to coming into my raw data. Usually my service account should be working with raw data before it gets promoted, and so on and so on. You can drive all of that kind of policies with Theom. Yep.
So I believe we've got about 15 minutes left. There was another question here. If you want to take it now, or if you want to wait, I'll follow.
I'll just finish there a few more slides, and then I'll open it up for questions. This is another case of, oh yeah, this is the case where Theom identifies what your policies over provision tables are. In this environment, the high-level business policy, what the customer said was, find all my sensitive data in my environment and make sure that over-provisioning is less than 2%. So Theom's job was find where their sensitive data is, automatically start promoting those tables or views or whatever those objects are up, also study over-provisioning of those systems from an access point of view, and then and there's more of a healthcare-like setting thing. It goes, drives, finds, so anything in blue is what this business needs to continue running. So to establish this, what Theom has to do is a couple of things. One is study all access patterns. So usually businesses tell us what their typical access patterns look like or business cycles look like, whether it's 3 months, whether it's 6 months, whatever that period is. Default for Theom is analyze everything in the last 3 months for the customer, but it could be more, could be something like a year, study the entire environment for a year, and then start recommending what their ideal policy should be. But before Theom recommends that, it needs to take out attacks from this is why that whole attack detection capability is so built into Theom, is because you never want to grandfather attacks into your policies. So Theom will study all access patterns, find what's bad behavior or attacks inside this environment, strip them out, and then generate the policy for the customer. And in this particular case, they're saying, okay, you really need selects for these particular roles. Everything else can be stripped out, and that's where we'll work with Unity Catalog and other enforcement points of enforcement to start stripping out these permissions thing. So that's this. This is actually showing other. The previous one was around roles. Theom is actually figuring things around groups or roles and things, and you could have a pretty deep role hierarchy tree. It'll analyze that tree and suggest an alternate tree implementation if that really helps your case. It'll also look per user and study whether this user has access to roles that he or she does not need access to, and go down that path. So study it from roles, groups, all the way down to users, things. It'll also drive remediation, like revoking. Yeah, so it'll also revoke things that can undo things and go through all of that stuff, assuming the user asks Theom to do this particular automated remediation thing. Yeah, same set. And yeah, we can now take questions.